Have you ever Googled your own name? I did, on a dare from a friend during a boring night I typed in Daniel Miller and hit enter, expecting to see my forgotten social media profiles or maybe some old high school sports stats. But what I found instead made my blood run cold. An obituary. My obituary. It was from a local newspaper in a town I'd never heard of, dated 3 years ago. According to the article, Daniel Miller had died in a tragic car accident. He was 34 years old. My exact age. I laughed it off at first. It had to be a coincidence, right? There must be thousands of Daniel Millers in the world. But then I kept reading, and the details became chillingly familiar. It listed my parents' names, my hometown, even the university I graduated from. It was all correct, but then it mentioned something that made no sense at all. A grieving wife named Sarah. I'd never been married. I'd never even met a woman named Sarah. My heart started pounding in my chest. Was this some kind of sick, elaborate prank? Or was something far stranger going on? I had to find out. The next morning, I drove to the town mentioned in the obituary, a place called Crestwood. It was a small, quiet town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. My first stop was the funeral home that handled the arrangements. My hands were shaking as I walked in. An older gentleman, the manager, greeted me with a kind but confused look. I showed him the obituary on my phone and asked, "I know this sounds crazy, but can you tell me anything about this?" He put on his glasses, his eyes widening as he looked from the screen to my face. "Good heavens," he whispered. You're him." He confirmed it all. He had personally overseen the funeral and cremation of Daniel Miller 3 years ago. He remembered the grief-stricken young widow, Sarah. He pulled out a file, and there it was. A death certificate with my name, my birth, date, and my parents' names. It was official. According to the world, I was dead. The funeral director gave me an address for Sarah. He was hesitant, but my desperation must have been obvious. Driving to her house, my mind was a whirlwind of impossible questions. How could this be real? Was I losing my mind? I pulled up to a charming little blue house with a well-tended garden. A woman was watering flowers on the porch. When she turned, my breath caught in my throat. She was beautiful, with sad, gentle eyes. "Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, and the watering can fell from her hand, clattering on the wooden planks. Her face went pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of shock, fear, and something else. Recognition. She backed away, her hand flying to her mouth. "Daniel," she stammered. "But you can't be." We sat in her living room, surrounded by pictures of a life I'd never lived. There were photos of her and a man who looked exactly like me. Our wedding day. Vacations in places I'd never been. Christmases with a family I didn't know. Sarah, through tears, told me their story. She'd met her Daniel 5 years ago at a coffee shop. He was passing through town, but they had an instant connection. He decided to stay. They fell in love, got married, and built a life together. He was a loving husband, a kind man, the center of her world. And then, 3 years ago, he was gone, killed instantly. When a truck ran a red light, she had grieved him, mourned him, and was just starting to piece her life back together. And now, his ghost was sitting on her couch. I told her my story. I showed her my driver's license, my credit cards, my life in another city, just a few hours away. I told her about my memories from the day of the accident. I was at work, in a meeting. I had records, emails, witnesses who could prove it. But Sarah had evidence too. Her Daniel had called her that morning on his way to a client's office in the opposite direction. His phone records proved it. His car's GPS data confirmed its location at the crash site. Nothing made sense. It was as if 2 versions of me had existed at the same time, in 2 different places. Together, Sarah and I started to investigate this impossible mystery. We drove to the town where her Daniel had supposedly grown up, according to the life he'd told her about. We found the house. We met the people who claimed to be his parents, a kind, elderly couple who wept when they saw me. Deyuk, calling me their son, convinced I'd somehow come back. They showed me my childhood bedroom, filled with trophies and photos of a boy who was my spitting image. We visited Daniel's old workplace. His colleagues recognized me instantly, sharing stories about a man I'd never been. Every piece of evidence we found confirmed the existence of this other Daniel. Dental records from his childhood dentists perfectly matched my own. It wasn't just a look-alike. We were, physically, the exact same person. The puzzle was maddening. We were at a dead end until Sarah had an idea. The truck driver from the accident. We managed to track him down. He was an old man, still haunted by what happened. He reluctantly agreed to talk to us. He recounted the moments before the crash. He said the strangest thing happened right before the impact. For just a split second, a flash of light blinded him, and he could have sworn he saw two identical cars at the intersection, occupying the same space. He'd told the police, but they dismissed it as a trick of the light, a symptom of his shock. But hearing it now, looking at me, Eknio, it was Santi. His imagination, that's when it finally clicked. A single, terrifying, impossible thought. I thought back 5 years, to the exact day Sarah said she met her Daniel at that coffee shop. I remembered that day vividly. I had been on a road trip, and I'd stopped in a small town for a coffee. I was in a hurry, so I just grabbed it and left. But I remember hesitating. The coffee shop was cozy, and a pretty girl had smiled at me. For a moment, I considered staying, just for an hour. But I didn't. I got back in my car and drove on. In that moment of decision, at that crossroads in a tiny coffee shop, my life must have fractured. One version of me drove away and continued the life I knew. The other version stayed, met Sarah, and created a whole new life. My reality had split into two parallel streams. Faced with this impossible truth, Sarah and I didn't know what to do. She had lost her husband, and I had discovered a life I could have had. We spent weeks together, sharing stories, piecing together the two lives of Daniel Miller. She told me about the man she loved, his hopes, his dreams, his little quirks. And in her stories, I saw a reflection of myself, a better, happier version. We were grieving the same man, in a way. And through that shared grief, something new began to grow. We fell in love. It was a strange and complicated love, born from loss and a cosmic anomaly, but it was real. It felt like I was not just falling for Sarah, but also inheriting the love my other self had for her. It felt like destiny, a second chance I never knew I needed. A few months later, we got married, standing in the same spot where she had married my other self. It wasn't about replacing him, but about honoring his memory and continuing the love story he started. We were merging two lives into one. A year later, Sarah told me she was pregnant. Holding her, feeling the gentle kick of our child, I finally felt whole. I had found the life I was supposed to live, the love I was meant to have. I often think about my other self. His life was cut short, but his choices led me back to Sarah. In a way, he didn't just die. He gave me his life, his love, and his future. I will forever be grateful for that gift. I am Daniel Miller, and I am living for two. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story. If it touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more tales of the extraordinary. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, take care.